Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm a bit late. Welcome to Compassionate Response to COVID-19 with my buddy. Topic this morning is, I've called it Soul and the Ten Fetters. What is that? Well, I don't mean soul in the sense of, some sort of permanent fixed essence that's, like you get in religions, that sort of thing. I mean more soul in the sense of Aretha Franklin and feeling, kind of connection with feeling and humanity, really. An ability to feel and be connected to emotion and to empathise and that sort of thing. And what are the Ten Fetters? Well, the Ten Fetters are a model that's in particularly Theravada Buddhism, which is like a kind of a fetter is something that gets in the way. So these are 10 things that kind of get in the way of us being awakened or enlightened. So people talk about breaking the first 3 fetters or something like that, and it's at that point you're a stream entrant, what's called a stream entrant, and you're guaranteed in theory to be able to attain enlightenment within 7 lifetimes. What I'm doing is I'm drawing on an article by an Ottoman called Bodhiketu, who did about 10 years ago. He did this article on the 10 fetters, and just kind of exploring that a bit, really. What the path looks like ahead, and how we mark progress. And I think it's quite likely that there's quite a few people in the Triratna Buddhist order who got interested in the 10 fetters and an insight and started to kind of develop a kind of model that's a bit separate from the traditional Triratna way of doing things. And so I just want to kind of like drag things back a bit into the normal mainstream, that sort of thing, and talk about in and around this area. So yeah. Anyway, I think I've got my lighting a bit better this morning. I've kind of moved forward and more near the window, so I've been struggling a bit with getting the lighting right and that sort of thing. So we'll do some body work and then meditation, and I'll get onto the topic. So if you want to stand up, we'll do some of that. Too high. Okay, so begin by just drumming with your fingers on top of your head. And feel the contact of your feet with the ground. And the feeling of your clothes touching your skin. The air on your skin. Any sounds you can hear outside. So just letting ourselves just start to inhabit the physical world a bit more, of sensations and things. you could say there's kind of two basic worlds. There's a world of thoughts and planning and all that, which is where a lot of our anxiety comes from. You know? There's the world of actual experience, tangible experience. Put your hands together, which is often where the solution comes in, grounding ourselves in our body, feeling reassurance coming from our physical experience. Okay, just cradle your forehead in the palms of your hands. Have a sense of turning away from the world. It's like you don't need to be responding to the world. And instead you might choose to just try and respond to how you're feeling at the moment. Or just feel how you're feeling. And just give your face a bit of a wash with your hands. And rub your hands together. And just swinging backwards and forwards. And then point the other direction. Take a few deeper breaths. And back the other side. And the other side again. Just kind of rotating your hips. The other way around. So it's like you're kind of keeping your mind and your body together. So it's not like your mind's ahead of your body or your body's ahead of your mind. And then just twisting, push across like this and just twist your spine, hold it. Then back the other way, hold it. Nice twist. A little bit of shaking. Okay, I think that'll probably do. So now just getting used to being in a new position, and just let your energy of your body settle down. From a sense of ground underneath you. And tuning into how you're feeling at the moment. And then just begin to notice your breathing. Just watching your breath come and go. And just dropping in a silent count in your mind at the end of the out breath. So breathing in, breathe out. When the breath has ended, just count 1. And then breathe in, breathe out normally. Count 2, breathe in, breathe out. Count 3. Carry on like that until you get to 10. And then start again from 1. Breathe in, breathe out. 1, 2, and so on. And if you get lost, just come back to the breath and then start again from 1. The mindfulness of breathing. So now carrying on with following your breath as before, but just move the counting to just before the breath begins. Count 1, breathe in, breathe out. Count 2, breathe in, breathe out. Just breathe in naturally. And all the time. 2, just connect a bit more with ourselves, with our feelings, our emotions. Maybe having a sense of soulfulness, what that means in meditation. So maybe soulfulness in meditation means an appropriate response to feeling, an empathic response, feelingful response. So just keep giving up your weight to the ground. Make sure that you're balanced. So if your bones of your body are balanced, you'll be hopefully able to just let go in your muscles. So relaxation is like a physical thing. It's like unfurling a fist. Just let any tension unfurl and fall away towards the ground. Now just let the counting fade away and just watching your breath from moment to moment. So now in the fourth stage, just refining your awareness to just focus on the delicate sensations that are around the nose and mouth when the breath enters and leaves the body. So giving those sensations enough space and time, maybe sitting back a bit more, relaxing a bit more, and just letting them be there in the center of your experience. So in your own time, just let your meditation come to an end. So there we go. So this is the second session I've done since having a break and doing a solitary retreat last week. And I remember my friend Jinanda saying talking about giving a talk when you've just been meditating. Oh no, that's it. No, he's been into this was in the early 90s, and he was going to be interviewed by somebody from radio, something like that, at West London Buddhist Centre, and he wondered about the wisdom of like meditating just beforehand to get a bit more calm, because what can happen is you can end up like shunting your mind into a particular world, that's a bit withdrawn, and then it's hard to come out and express yourself. So I think I'm experiencing that a bit this week, in terms of having done that retreat where I've just withdrawn a bit into myself and been reading books and things, and quite interested. I'm reading all about history of India, the early civilizations in India and Indus Valley civilization, all this sort of thing. So yeah, but what can happen? Well, I think what I'm experiencing is like what I experienced on Wednesday was slightly stumbling over myself in my mind, what I was supposed to be saying here. So I wasn't quite sure that I covered the topic as I would have liked in a way. It might be all right. I might need to redo it, but it might be all right. It might just be being self-critical or whatever. But it's almost like I got all the ideas there, well, most of them. And then it's just in the expressing that I struggled with it. So I think it probably is a case of being a bit too in a meditative state. But it's always helpful, I think. Well, I know to be honest about what's happening, and then you're not trying to hide that. You can then just more easily move on and just get on with things and do the job. Yeah, so this article by Bodhi Ketu. So Bodhi Ketu is an order member who lives in Adhisthana. He's the finance officer. So Adhisthana is the kind of the central retreat centre for the Triratna movement. I knew Bodhi Ketu back in in fact, I lived with him back in the early mid 90s. I moved back to Manchester. I was at Manchester University, and I went to London in 1977, and was in London for up to 1994, and then I came back to Manchester in January '95, and people were kind of converting a warehouse into the Manchester Buddhist Centre, like 5-story warehouse, and he was one of the young guys involved in that. I can't remember what he was doing. What was he doing? Oh, anyway, I can't remember. But yeah, so he got ordained. He was always somebody very much into his meditation practice, and in fact, often kind of he'd been getting to quite blissful sort of jhanic states. And he got ordained the year before me, and he was in '96. I was '97, and then he's done various things, but I think he's often, tried to be in situations where he can meditate quite a bit, and so being at Adhisthana sort of really is good. I think it suits him, So the origin of his talk, which is called Stages of the Path, Stream Entry and Beyond, is a kind of, one thing he noticed was that there was this kind of, so what's stream entry? So stream entry, there's an image there, isn't there? So to enter a stream, what is it to enter a stream? So a stream is flowing, isn't it, in a particular direction. So when you enter a stream, it's like you get pulled in a particular direction. So the image in Buddhism is that you traverse what's called a threefold path, which consists of, first, of ethics, being skillful or creating happiness out of your actions of body, speech, and mind. So the person is made up of those three aspects, your bodily actions, physical actions, tangible actions in the world, vocal actions, what you say, and mental and emotional actions, what goes on inside. So all of those are actions, and they all have consequences in terms of happiness for yourself and for others. So if you shout at somebody and upset them, it causes suffering. If you speak in a slanderous way, it causes suffering. So Buddhists work on their actions of body, speech, and mind to try and make them conducive to happiness for themselves and others. Harmonious, kind, aware, those sort of thing, truthful, these sort of aspects to things. So yes, ethics is the first of the first aspect of the threefold path, and then building on ethics. So ethics, in a way, is what you do in your daily life all the time. The choices you make, and then next you've got meditation. So in a way, if you've got lots of things that are disturbing your psyche, like things that you regret or feel uncomfortable about, trying to think of an example, of sort of somebody who has done harm, and then maybe they're not bothered at, it doesn't bother them, they're just, because they don't realize the consequences have not gone in to their psyche about what effect that has on people or whatever it is. So in a way, they're unaffected by the consequences of their actions. But what might happen is that at a certain point they are in a quieter place and maybe a more reflective place, and it actually dawns on them what they're, what they've done, what effects they've had on the world, on other people and stuff. And then what happens is they go, oh no, it's like they really get it, that, and they have a sense of genuine regret about something. So in this way, meditation can help us like refine our ethics, because we're actually sitting more with ourselves, and we're sitting more with, the truth of our lives and everything. So we're not just kind of just keeping going and sort of, and never stopping and think, and never stopping and reflecting on ourselves and on our actions and stuff. So meditation in a ways augments ethics, because it's like we're bringing awareness more to our actual experience and stuff. And of course, it can be a conscious development of particular qualities that then we take out into the world. So, when we do loving kindness meditation or any of the other Brahma Viharas meditations, then we're consciously, building up those skillful mental states. We're sort of trying to be kinder, be more friendly, be, more truthful, those sorts of things, So in meditation, so the word is the word for higher states of consciousness in meditation in Sanskrit is dhyana, and in Pali it's jhana, Jhana, and that just means meditation, and it's the same word that is in Japanese is Zen, and in China is Chan. So jhana, in a way, it means proper meditation when it's really going well. So in the four dhyanas, they're characterized by skillfulness, by skillful states of mind. So when we really get going with get our kindness up and running, and it's really sort of building in our meditation, then often that's when we kind of start to feel happier, and we enjoy when seeing people do well, and we're really putting a lot of energy into try and bring a better world about. So when we're doing that, it's very satisfying to be doing something much more what we call wholesome. Buddhism talks about wholesome. Skillful is sometimes talked about as wholesome. So a more wholesome kind of activity in the world. And then ultimately that meditation, ethics, meditation, wisdom, so it leads to, gives us the better conditions for wisdom, for seeing how things really are. And I don't think it's kind of really sort of properly understood how much the Buddha created something of his own. I mean, often, Buddhism has been the induction of Buddhism into the West has sort of been surrounded by lots of scholarship and, going back a few hundred years, people sort of saw Buddhism as a kind of a really good thing, and they saw it as like a rational religion, and that maybe sort of could fit well into the West and all that sort of stuff, but also, in the history of it, because at the time, you had the Vedic religion, which is basically Hinduism, was around, Brahminical religion, and there were other religions like Jainism, and it's like people are kind of a bit vague about what happened at that point. Did the Buddha invent something completely different, or did he build on something that was there before? And I think often people are a bit vague, and they sort of say, they kind of vaguely, oh, he built on something before, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, obviously people meditated, but what people do in meditation in one religion can just be very different from what they do in another. In fact, it can be almost like the opposite, So I think it's hard, but it's hard to then, people often want to feel like there's some sort of unbroken tradition going on here, that they can feel faith in. So they want things to have come out something before. But sometimes you get something new comes into being, and I think that was what happened with Buddhism, with the Buddha. So basically, the difference between the previous religion, in a way, was that it's what Sangharakshita would call an ethnic religion. So it's based around a particular people, a bit like Judaism is based around the Jewish nation. Hinduism is kind of based around the Indian people. And it very much served, this is I kind of picked up last week, it very much served a function of, so the householder was seen as so it was all kind of based a little bit around kind of village life, and people were beginning to settle down into, rather than being wandering nomad types, which is what the Aryans, I think, were, and on horseback and all that, and having kind of cattle and stuff. They started to settle down as they cleared started to clear some of the Ganges Valley and plant, turn to agriculture, and then so it required something different, so they then had a bit more of a settled householder kind of life. So the household, the head of the household was, it's what the term householder means, head of the household. So where am I going with this? So the focus is, in a way, was on. It's almost like what they were teaching. The Brahmins was what they were teaching was craving or desire is a good thing. Desire is a good thing. So if you're trying to build an economy, a bit like the West, that's what you're teaching, isn't it? Desire is a good thing. So that's what the Vedic religion was teaching. It's good to pursue stuff and try and bring things into the world, material things and all that. But I think when the Buddha came along, it was a bit like this Vedic religion, which was kind of based a little bit around kind of more like village life. So you think of Gandhi, and his revolution of against the British, with focusing on simplicity, but also on weaving spinning their own cotton. The Indians, kind of doing I keep getting lost here. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of it's building, it's focusing on society, but and it's very much like village life, spinning cotton and stuff. But I think what had happened was that Buddhism arose in and around a time when it was more like cities and large towns were kind of coming into being and stuff like that. And I think, like the king of Magadha, was that right? Magadha, king of Magadha, would have an army of like 60,000 troops. So this indicates a kind of a shift, to kingdoms and rather than villages, kingdoms and cities and this sort of thing. So so there's more freedom there, and so people start to maybe explore other things, other just life itself. As the individual maybe became had the burden of choice thrust upon them. They were no longer stuck with the being in the village, but they could do other things, and so there's a plus and a minus to that, So they're kind of forced into a sort of maybe looking at life a bit more, like some of the issues around life. So that's what happened with the Buddha, and he sort of thought, oh blimey, old age, sickness, and death happens. What do we do about that? So he went on his quest to try and solve that as a problem for himself. Anyway, coming back to the paper, so ethics, meditation, and wisdom. So what Bodhiketu noticed was that there were two contradictory views going on within the Buddhist tradition about what stream entry was. So stream entry is the point. That's it, entering the stream. So wisdom is like you enter a river, and then this is Sangharakshita's image. You then lift your feet up and you just go with the flow, So, and it's like going with reality, So you let reality, you stop resisting reality, and you let reality inform you rather than you trying to kind of fight it or something. So the way that this works with meditation is within the four dhyanas. At the level of, before you get to the third dhyana, you go through a process which is called passaddhi, or pacification. And it's almost like the mind starts to become, the whole psyche starts to become more malleable and flexible and adaptable to life. It also becomes more positive, more skillful, more emotionally positive. So in order to, it's almost like it's able to do two things. One is to be more consistently aware and skillful and kind and positive and supportive to life, and but also to be able to take the imprint of what life gives you, So it's like to not be resisting that. So to accept that, for instance, things come to an end, and there's suffering there in life, inherent in life. So, so that this is entering the stream where we're able to let life be as it is and learn from it in a way. Yeah, so these two contradictory views of what stream entry was, which is, so stream entry is the point, it's called the point of no return. So it's like at this point, you've got enough momentum in your spiritual life to actually be able to get to enlightenment without to guarantee to be able to get to enlightenment. And in Theravada Buddhism, or Buddha Gosha, what he was saying was that at stream entry, you've got to have unshakable ethics. Your ethics has got to be unshakable. But that didn't seem to fit with the other views that were there, that were around in the Pali Canon. Okay, so what does this other view say about stream entry that isn't the view that you have to have impeccable ethics to have got to that point? So what it says in the text is 3 conditions are forsaken by him or her at the instant of acquisition of insight, i.e. stream entry. Namely, 1, self-delusion. So this is the first fetter. And it's like fixed self-view. So and why this is relevant, it's like if you think that you can't change, if you think that you're just stuck with who you are, then you're not going to move on, are you? You're not going to bother trying to change if you just think that you're fixed. So fixed self-view is for the first fetter. Right. Second fetter is 2, doubt. So this is more like sort of doubt and indecision rather than a rational doubt where you just don't believe something because you don't think it's true. So an image for this kind of doubt is it's almost like you come to a fork in the road. You're going down the road and you come to a fork in the road, and then there are 2 possibilities. You could go down one path or the other path. And if you imagine that both roads sort of disappear into a bank of fog, so you can't tell what's at the end of each of the roads, each of the paths. So, but what you do is, instead of going down one road, investigate what's down there, find out what's down there, and then find out if it's the place you want to go to, and if it isn't, come back, then go down the other one. You don't do that. What you do is you just sit there at the fork in the road, not doing anything. So it's almost like a sort of lack of commitment to get on with working out what works and what doesn't work, and it's like a sort of a way of just stopping and sitting on, not exactly sitting on the fence, but in a way, it's kind of, I think it's sort of slightly dishonest. It's like you're not willing to admit that you don't have the commitment to explore all of this, and you're just going to go, it's like a kind of form of laziness, really. So that's what doubt, this form of doubt is, Vicky Kitcher. And then the third condition is indulgence in rites and ceremonies, or rites and rituals as ends in themselves. So, so it's like we just go through the motions of things, we kind of in a way we can often do this because we're part of a particular group, and we do what the group's doing because we just want to belong. But again, it's a similar thing to what I was just said in the last one, that, you know, we need to sort of have the kind of commitment to not just go through the motions, but to actually try and sort of work out, well, hang on, you know, how does this all work? And if it isn't working for me, can I work out what's a better way for this to work, or do we understand this well enough? And that's this sort of thing, you know. So we're not just going through the motions. We're actually. So Siddhartha did that. You know, he didn't just go through the motions. He evaluated things and then rejected them when they didn't work, and then kept going like that. You know. So it says that the stream entrant is absolutely free of the 4 states of misery, and is incapable of committing the 6 crimes. So the 4 states. So in Buddhism, you've got the 6 realms. You know, you've got the different possible states of, in a way, states of being that you can have. You've got human realm, which is where you got pleasure and pain mixed together a lot. You know, things go well and they go badly. You've got the God realm where things just go well all the time. You know, you've got the hungry ghost realm, which is where things are like states of addiction, unsatisfied craving. You've got the hell realm where it's just painful all the time. You've got the animal realm where things are a bit like dominated by just survival needs, and you've got the jealous gods realm where things it's like competitiveness. You know, big business. You know, people are sort of powerful, capable people, but they're often serving some sort of you know, aim other than, say, Buddhism. You might be, you know, promote, you know, kind of powerful competitive world. So so the 4 states of misery is like getting reborn into either the hell realm, the animal realm, or hungry ghost realm, or the jealous gods realm. So so you get reborn into, according to Buddhism, into those states. You could say that the real states, or the psychological states, when you're really unskillful. So it just means that you know, the stream entrant no longer does anything that's bad enough to get reborn into those states. So it's like they don't do really gross negative actions, you know. And they're incapable of committing the 6 crimes. So the 6 crimes are things like, again, they're just really gross, unskillful actions, like killing your father, murdering your mother, killing an enlightened being, an arahant, causing a split in the Sangha, wounding a Buddha, and holding wrong views. So yeah, and it says, whatever evil deed the person commits, this is the stream entrant, either by body, speech, or mind, is incapable of concealing it. So stream entry, there's two things that are mentioned there. One is that he doesn't have, the stream entrant doesn't have wrong views. And the second thing that was mentioned there was that whenever they do something unskillful, body, speech, or mind, that immediately admit to it and confess it and try to put it right. They try to make amends to people. So what does this indicate? So I think what it indicates is that, but in his article, this is a diagram of it's like an iceberg. So what you've got is the first three fetters. So this is stream entry here. That's stream entry. So at stream entry, you've got what's called right view. So these are the three fetters. So when you broken these three fetters, self-delusion, fixed self-view. When you break fixed self-view, it's like you know what you're doing. You know what you need to do. So it's like you're not sitting there thinking, "Oh, I'm all right," You're sitting there thinking, "Oh, I've got to work on all this stuff. I've got to change myself," So when you've got this clear knowledge of what you need to do, of what you need to do in terms of yourself, what sort of different person you need to become, then because you've got that, then when you do something that's against that, that's letting yourself down, in terms of what you need to do, that's why you immediately confess it, because you really don't want to hide that, and you want to get rid of these sorts of states. So yeah, I think that's really interesting that that the stream entrant will always immediately confess, when they've done something unskillful. But that's because they've got this kind of powerful, kind of drive, to change. That's sort of built up through their meditation practice, and they feel inspired and all this sorts of stuff. So this, and then the second fetter, which is doubt and indecision. When that's kind of broken, what happens is it's replaced by this commitment and determination. So a really strong commitment and determination is there. So it's said that the stream entrant, to set up a sangha effectively, really, in a way you have to be a stream entrant. So, or connected with that, in that sort of power, in a way, because then you're not going to get deflected by, you're not going to get seduced away from it. You'll be determined and committed, and you'll kind of bring it about. So you could say that this is like more of the emotional side of things. And then the third fetter, rites and rituals, is ends in themselves. When you got rid of that, it's almost like you know how to bring things about. So it's like first is what you need, what needs to happen, and the last one here, the third one is how. So with rites and rituals, in a way, sometimes think of it like this is a ritual, isn't it? Crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, So it's like you're going through the motions, you're hoping for the best and that, but that's not going to really get you very far. What really gets you far is like when you really kind of know how to do something. So right view here is you could say it's this. It's like it's all these things. It's like you know how to do something. You know what needs to be done, and you know that you need to be committed to it. Yeah. So in Tree Ratna, it's going to be a long talk. This actually. Oh well, gets it into the world. So in Tree Ratna, we had something. Well, what often happens in the 30 odd years I've been involved is you get kind of not exactly fads, but you get kind of things. What's the word? It kind of comes through. It's like everyone's doing it at a certain point. So. Or interested in it. So I remember in the early 90s, it was Robert Bly and the kind of men's movement did the round. That's it, did the rounds, in 91 or 92, this sort of era. So what's been doing the rounds in the last, say, 10 years or something, has been a lot of interest in insight and how to develop insight. And we had something come along called Liberation Unleashed. And it was a bit weird, really, because some of the people involved in it weren't necessarily Buddhists. So how can, the question that arose to me was like, how can you, Buddhist insight is going to be specific to Buddhism, isn't it? It's got to be framed in Buddhist terms, but what happens often is you get, I think, as you get sort of toward, kind of more into the more rarefied stratosphere of like things like insight, wisdom, all this sort of stuff, enlightenment, then it's kind of easy for people to sort of riff on it, kind of talk about non-duality and all this sort of stuff. And it's all kind of, for Westerners who are often quite very interested in becoming something, becoming spiritual or, getting somewhere, getting away from this sort of consumer society and feeling like you kind of become something, then it's all what goes on, isn't it? It's all people are interested in, all that sort of stuff. And it's like people can just talk absolute garbage, bit like the Monty Python thing of the follow the good, follow the sun, follow the shoe, or whatever it is. It's like people just want to follow something often, or they want something to believe in, And so I think in Tree Ratna order, it's like people were sort of thinking, well, surely, Sangharakshita just said, something like, order members, ought to be able to be stream entrants within 15 to 20 years or something like that. So people were kind of asking the question, well, am I a stream entrant or what, and almost like wanting some sort of confirmation in that or of that. But yeah, stream entry is about having right view. So, and it's very practical. It's like, as I said, it's about knowing what you need to do, having the commitment to doing it and knowing how to do it. So it's not just about a wish for, some wish for insight, wish for some sort of insight. It's about who you are, really. your whole spiritual personality. So what happened with Liberation Unleashed was that it's almost like a kind of, I've not done it myself. I know lots of people who have, but I think the main thing seems to have been some sort of like system of mentorship, whereby you'd have somebody who would kind of take you through these steps in a way, reflections towards gaining some sort of insight, And in Theravada Buddhism, the focus is very much on what are called the three Lakshanas, so the three marks of conditioned existence, that things are impermanent, that therefore they are unsatisfactory in some way or other, dukkha, and they are insubstantial, they don't have a kind of fixed essence to them, So I imagine what happens in Liberation Unleashed mentorship relationship is that you keep having to answer these questions or reflect on these questions about impermanence, about insubstantiality, and about dukkha, to the point where it kind of goes in a bit more, and you kind of get it, sort of thing. So it's like a reflection meditation, really, where what you're trying to do is change your views about things. So just kind of to have that insight that that things are impermanent and stuff. But it's worth pointing out that the Theravada Buddhist approach has followed what Sangharakshita calls often a via negativa. It's like a sort of, it's about focusing on what on the downside of things, the fact that things are impermanent and all that, rather than on the upside of things, the fact that you can create things through working with conditionality. So impermanence is an aspect of conditionality, but things also come into being. Enlightenment comes into being independent on conditions. So we can actually create better people out of ourselves through working in meditation and ethics and all that. So I think and according to Andrew Skilton in what was it, History of Buddhism? So he's got a book on the history of Buddhism. He says that that the loving kindness meditation, even though it kind of gets recited a lot, the Metta Sutta gets recited a lot in Theravada situations, it's like it's really de-emphasized, So there's a real question mark about what insight is. It seems to be sort of different things depending on which school of Buddhism you ascribe to, So right view, in a way, in the Theravada is probably a lot to do with what they're pursuing in Liberation Unleashed, which is this sort of understanding that things are impermanent and all that sort of stuff, and even trying to let that affect you emotionally, but that is probably exactly half of the picture, because the other half of the picture is that, as Buddhists, we need to be creating a world, a positive world around us, which is more what the Mahayana Buddhists would sort of, or do focus on, the Bodhisattva ideal, creating, a world where you're trying to help people and, with awareness and loving kindness and all that. So I think, this is probably where some of the difficulties have come from with Liberation Unleashed, that it's like it's almost like when you get verified, as having gone through this process, whatever, then it's not like, I think the traditional, or maybe the more, the approach that we've been having in Tree Ratner is more about who you are, what sort of person you've become, as a human being, that's the focus. It's like, that's the assessment that's being made, is this person becoming a better human being and more aware, self-aware, more kind, all that sort of thing. And that is not an abstract thing. That's not a wish list. That's something that you can actually tell, when you're around people, you can see in people what they're like, when they've got qualities and things, so I think that the Liberation Unleashed people don't bring that into the equation. It's not even considered. In fact, I remember talking with another order member, and they're sort of saying that they thought that insight and behaviour were not linked. And I thought, what? I just don't get that at all. So yeah. So you've got these two things. There's two ways of looking at things. You've got this bit more kind of a holistic way of looking at things, which is like, your development is about who you are, about the sort of person you are, and the effect that you're having on the world. That's the more Mahayana view, or that you've got the more Theravada view. It's like, it's about this sort of, have you seen into impermanence, and much less of an emphasis on who you are, or what you're creating in the world. And I think essentially, it talks in one of the 6 heinous crimes is causing a schism in the Sangha. So it's funny that this arises in and around stream entry. So if it's almost like you can't, in Buddhism, there's a schism between the Sangha happens not because of different views in a way, not because one thing's orthodox and the other something else isn't. It's more through practice, a split in practice. So orthopraxy. So orthopraxy means the same practice. So it's almost like you can't have 2 systems running at the same time, So if you can't be practicing, I'm going to practice the 10 precepts and the 15 precepts at the same time, you either do one or the other. So in a way, you either have a system where you're thinking of insight in terms of humanity and what sort of person somebody's become, and or you're thinking of it in terms of some sort of measurement of insight in terms of seeing into the nature of things, assessing that somebody's seen into the nature of things. I think it just leads to two very different sorts of human beings, really, because I mean, a question that comes up for me is like, well, whatever you're doing, what do you teach? What do you teach? So I suppose what I'm teaching is the Mahayana view of things, and what other people are teaching is more this sort of focus on individual attainment and that sort of thing. And that will attract people. The two will attract different sorts of people. Those who are wanting to become kind of like better as human beings will be attracted towards the kind of more human side of things, and those who wanting to get somewhere or have a sense of achievement and like validation will go the other way. So yeah, but Buddhist traditions always had these different. You got in a way you got to make your own mind up about what is right view. Which do you think is right view? It can only be one or the other. Because essentially all spiritual life is about is up to it's like you pays your money and you take your choice. It's like you make a decision about what you think is a value and what isn't. And there's no getting away from that. That's we all just put our money on something. We might put it onto success and worldly fame and all that. We might put it onto community, socialism. We just make our decision about what we put our money on, and then we'll live with the consequences of that. That'll then bear fruit in some sort of way or other, Okay, so what what happens beyond stream entry? So the stages of the path. So it's like in Theravada Buddhism, there are these 4 stages of the path. So you got stream entry, where you've broken the first 3 fetters, and then you've got what's called in the scriptures the once returner. So basically, at stream entry, you the text says that you get to attain enlightenment. You're guaranteed to attain nirvana, enlightenment, within 7 lifetimes. So it's like you've got enough momentum that it means that whatever you do, you'll eventually get there, so so once so you have the category of once returner and then non-returner. So non-returner doesn't get reborn anymore, and then you got the arahant, so the enlightened person. So the next fetters are craving for sensuous experience, or Kama Raja, and aversion, or Vyapada, or hatred, basically. So you've got kind of craving and hatred, craving for sense desire and hatred. So what happens is the once returner has weakened craving and hatred, craving for sense desire and hatred. So it's like, you've had this sense of stream entry where you know what you're doing and what you need to do and how to do it, and you got the energy to do it, the commitment to do it, and then you set about doing it. So you set about transforming yourself. So over basically 6 lifetimes from here to here, you go from still having craving and hatred. So at this point at stream entry, you're no longer doing anything that very, very grossly unskillful that will lead you to getting reborn, which means basically kind of stuck in for a while, at least, a hard place, So you're not going to get, you're going to stay in the human realm, basically, or the God realm. At this point, but stream entry, and then at this point, you've got no more craving and hatred. So what happens is you've got no gross craving and hatred here. You've got only weakened craving and hatred here, and you've got no craving and hatred here. So this is the path of ethics, really, or you kind of going through transforming yourself. So it says that Bodhicitta talks about the once returner, why that's a category. It's like, what's important about once returner is like, you might still be unskillful, you might still have craving and hatred, but it doesn't. You don't have strong outbursts. It's always a bit. If it happens, it's always quite weak, So it's like the once returner would never just snap at somebody, or just kind of lose their mind in kind of addiction or craving for something, obsession for it. That anything would be sort of relatively weak, the movement towards craving or hatred, addiction. So the fourth and fifth fetters are craving for sensuous experience, Kama Raja, and aversion. Okay. So what's been interesting for me is interesting, a bit upsetting, really, is that some people that I've known, who've been through the Liberation Unleashed system and everything, and are now kind of moving through what's called the fetter model, which is the 10 work. They're now working through the 10 fetters with mentors and things. I think so. It might be that Bodhicittu's paper, like 10 years ago, has actually kind of informed some of the thinking with the fetter model. And so some of the thinking is that the idea that, obviously, your ethics isn't all sorted out at stream entry. It's like a lot of the work is after stream entry, So that's been talked about a lot, that oh yeah, well, I could be a stream entrant, even though I've got, I'm still getting angry, I'm still this, I'm still that. And I think sometimes people have maybe used this as a way of letting themselves off the hook, like ethically, like, oh, I don't really need to bother because after stream entry, I'm still going to be unskillful. So, but I think that is a wrong view. Well, it's definitely a wrong view. I mean, coming back to Bodhi Katie's thing of, the stream entrant is really intently, they knows what they have to do. And that when they do something that contradicts that, they immediately confess it and they're very sorry about it, Well, I don't see people doing that as much, who are in the fetter model, and they're not apologising for when they're unskillful. They're just thinking, oh well, that just happens, So it's almost like a kind of lack of understanding of the fact that, in a way, the stream entrant is out to, they'd be really committed to protecting people, protecting them from harm, building a sangha, building a human community, and that sort of thing. Not being kind of careless about what they did and thinking, oh, it doesn't matter because this is the stage I'm at, So people have, in the fetter model, have kind of taken themselves, or they've not taken themselves, they've had mentors that have taken them through all the way, but all the way to enlightenment. I mean, I don't, and I mean, the other thing is that it seems like nobody ever failed. I've never been aware of somebody who's failed the Liberation Unleashed, kind of getting through it, which doesn't seem, doesn't make sense, that everybody gets insight, I mean, it's more likely that very few people would get insight. I mean, that's what the Buddhist tradition has, what's happened in the Buddhist tradition. It's not like everybody becomes a Zen master, very few people do. So it's sort of just points to a kind of I don't know, lack of rigorous thinking, really. Yeah. So. So sometimes, people have been doing the fetter model have ended up being quite unskillful, and then not even bothering to, not thinking that there's the need to do any amends or this sort of thing. So, going on what I was saying earlier about ethics and meditation, it's like, well, maybe at some point they will realize that what they've been doing, and then, hopefully we'll sort of turn back towards the more human way of doing things, but at the moment it's a bit of a mess, I think. So let's move on to the 5. So that's 2 hours gone now. Anyway, it's all good, isn't it? So let's move on to the 5 higher fetters. So fetters 6 to 10. So here's a diagram of the higher fetters. So here we've had, this is craving for sensuous experience and aversion, weakened and then overcome. So we're down to here. This is the non-returner level here. Okay, so when So when a person becomes enlightened, what they have, what they have is what's called right view without ashrivas. So the knowledge of one of the high stages, knowledge of the destruction of the ashrivas is basically enlightenment in the spiral path. So what are the ashrivas? So the ashrivas are what are called biases or tendencies or taints, and there are three of them. So first of all, there's the bias towards sensuous experience. That's karma ashriva. So it's C-A-M-A, not karma. Karma's action. So karma ashriva. So Kama Raja, craving for sensuous experience. So, when all tendency towards wanting the world of the senses or look into the world of the senses for your satisfaction has disappeared, then you've overcome the bias towards sensuous experience. So in meditation, it's like, in a way, that's the first thing that you sort of do, and you're kind of turning away from the world of out there and for it to be satisfying you, and you're more turning to the world in here for this to be satisfying you. Like you're getting satisfaction from contentment, or from being kind, or from being ethical, being truthful, from seeing the positive effects of skillful action in the world. So you become less reliant on sensuous experience and more reliant on your meditation. And then what you've got is you've got these 5 higher fetters. So the 6th fetter is Rupa Raja, and it's craving for the world of archetypal form. So basically, the world of archetypal form is associated with meditation. So it's like higher states of consciousness in dhyana. So what's that saying? So it's saying that your reliance on getting happiness from your meditation practice, you're no longer craving that. So as you go up through the dhyanas, eventually in the 4th dhyana, you've got equanimity. We've got equanimity and mindfulness very powerfully established. So it's like you're being very, very skillful, but you're not being then deflected from that skillfulness by what you're experiencing, whether you're experiencing a lot of pleasure or whether you're not being distracted by pleasure in meditation. You're not being distracted by pain in the sense of like when you bring people to mind and it's painful because they're suffering, that doesn't floor you either, So it's like you're no longer craving for meditational experiences, and that kind of purifies your resolve really to keep going. You don't get distracted by what you're experiencing. That's it. And then you've got next 7th fetter is Arupa Raja, craving for the formless world. So that the Arupa dhyanas are this being aware of the sphere of infinite space, being aware of the sphere of infinite consciousness, being aware of the sphere of nothingness, no thingness, that there's no, in a way, that's realizing the fact that there's no essence to things. and neither perception nor non-perception. So in his book, The Origin of Buddhist Meditation, Alexander Wynne talks about the formless dhyanas as being because it's like the cosmological in nature, you know, awareness of infinite space, awareness of infinite consciousness. Well, how can you do that in your experience? You know, how can you say, "Oh yeah, I'm aware of infinite consciousness"? And so I think what he says is these are like cosmological, whereas these are the Rupa jhanas are more just experiential, so about phenomena, you know. So what he reckons is that the Rupa jhanas are not actually Buddhist, the Hindu, you know, the Hindu states, and that these are, in a way, that this is what the Buddha was taught by his first two teachers. They were teaching him to try and reach sort of a kind of, it's like a Vedic meditation to realize the permanent essence of the self, that sort of thing. And so what he found is he didn't find that. He gave up. He gave that up because it didn't work. So yeah. So in a way, it's a category here, which is sort of, and then maybe in a way, it's a bit like the way that you know, Hindu or Vedic gods like Brahma Sampati is included in the Buddhist tradition in the stories. It's almost like it's like the Buddha contextualizing that particular view of things, you know, rather than just saying, "Oh, ignore it." It's like saying, "Well, actually, you could think of these beings as existing, but they're below the Buddha." You know, so because they don't realize that they are impermanent and this sort of thing. They don't realize their wrong views in a way. So that's 7, and then 8 is mana or conceit. So this is, well, I suppose, like, you know, where a tendency to whatever we achieve to take it to ourselves and sort of go, "Oh yeah, this is, oh, I'm doing well here," you know, "Oh yeah, look at me," you know, sort of thing. So you know, the conceit of I, you know, so anything like that just is why is it a fetter? Well, I think it's a fetter because it gets in the way of the job in hand, you know. You know, as soon as you start thinking of I, of yourself, some of your attention is going away from the task, and the task is like this, bringing about a better world for everybody. You know, being more skillful, working out what needs to happen. You know, so the Bodhisattva is constantly, you know, giving different things, giving what the beings need. You know, what each being needs, but that takes a lot of work. You know, working out, well, what do they need? What does this person need? What do they need? What do they need? You know, so having a sense of me in the middle of all of that just gets in the way of it. You know, it's like gets in the way of the flow. You know, so conceit is the 8th fetter that goes before enlightenment, and then you've got Udaka, restlessness. And I think maybe this is a little bit like in the story of the Buddha, where he's assailed by the armies of Mara, you know, before he gets enlightened, and it's almost like that. There's that sort of maybe there's a, you know, and Mara sort of invites him to doubt himself, really. Who do you think you are, sitting there trying to gain enlightenment? What makes you so special and all that? So it's like there's a slight doubt, like restlessness, like kind of wavering thing. So maybe this is that disappearing, you know. So it's like the confidence, you know. The Buddha touched the ground, didn't he? You know, and said, "No, the earth is my witness." So it's like saying, "No, you know, I've done it. I know what I'm doing, you know, here. You know, I know what I'm doing, you know, and you know, I've done all this work. I'm very clear about, you know, I am going to attain enlightenment." So, in the scheme of the biases, ashravas, you could say that these four fetters, the 6, 7, 8, and 9, they're all associated with the bias towards becoming. So bhava ashrava, bhava means becoming. So so on the wheel of life, you have feeling, craving, grasping, becoming, birth, old age, and death. You know, so it's like whatever sort, you know, whenever you've got some sort of craving, you know, there's a bias. It means there's a bias towards becoming like you become a smoker, or you become this sort of person or that sort of person. You become, or even you become, you know, a nice Buddhist, you know, or you become somebody who, you know, is good at meditation, or you know, so you kind of, there's some sort of way in which you're orientated towards something or other. But I suppose, like, when that is broken, then it's almost like you've just established in the fluidity of life. It's like the Buddha would always be responding you know, like appropriately to whatever's in front of him, you know. So there's nothing becomes anything fixed, you know. There's just this kind of endless fluid response towards the situations in life. And you know, that is the case because there's this constant openness to reality and what reality works. So how reality works. So you know, the Buddha's kind of constantly, in a way, he's kind of going for refuge to the truth, you know, to the Dharma, to how things are. So he doesn't become anything, you know, or he stops becoming anything particular, you know, that's part of the world of the wheel, because so bhava is on the wheel. So he's not on the wheel, you know. So he's not. There's nothing that's conditioning him, you know, to be a particular way, you know. Maybe that's the way of looking at it. So this is bhava, bias towards becoming, and then finally you've got the last of the ashravas is avidya, which is bias towards ignorance. And that is the last fetter, you know, avidya, ignorance. So in the end, you know, that you know, any ignorance is just replaced by knowledge, you know, knowledge of how things are, knowledge that he's attained enlightenment, you know, complete non-delusion, asamoha sampajanya. You know, he possesses complete non-delusion. Yeah. So, so I feel very happy to have you know, drawn this lovely diagram I enjoyed making, and I think having the space on the retreat to think about things, to look at Bodhiketu's paper, has all helped bring this through, you know. So it's like actions have everything's conditioned, you know, conditionality. So if I hadn't have done the retreat, got quieter in my mind, I wouldn't have sort of then done the study. I wouldn't have done these, got clear about this, and then come through and giving it to you, you know. So yeah, so it's worth bearing in mind that, you know, meditate, you know, retreats are quite important. Yeah, and so I think, yeah, just to, how can I sum up now? So I've talked about Liberation Unleashed and the Fetter model and the more Triratna kind of Mahayana kind of human approach to what insight is, so, or might be. And yeah, so stream entry is about, you know, right view, really having right view, which includes right view about what to teach, what you're teaching, you know, what are you encouraging, what conditions are you setting up for people. So, you know, I would say that the Fetter model, Liberation Unleashed, is not setting up the right conditions. It doesn't encompass right view, and therefore, you know, eventually it will fail. And yeah, and I think, you know, people just maybe need to bear in mind things like projection, you know. So when you're you know, when you know, what are you projecting onto other people, you know? So seems like there's quite a lot of projection going on at the moment, and where does that projection come from? You know, what are you projecting? What are you projecting outward that's yours? You know, and that sort of thing. Yeah. So I think with the transition from right view with taints to right view without taints, what we're often working on is in here are our kind of buried emotions, our what's called anusaya, our latent tendencies. So tendencies towards getting angry, you know, towards you know, craving and this sort of thing. Our fears. So all of these are just kind of there, and this is what we have to transform, you know. And I lost myself again. Yeah, so it's not it's often about the unconscious side of ourselves that this is working on here, you know. And I think to be helped with our unconscious, you know, with our unconscious tendencies, we have to be kind of opening ourselves up to scrutiny and to support and to a community really of practitioners that we trust and that we're willing to work with. So that's it for today. So thanks everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to go through that. And it's really helped me to clarify my own thinking. And I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.